Chosen one. There are wounds in your story that didn't start with you. Some of the pain you've carried was written into your bloodline long before you took your first breath. You've wondered why the battles have felt so deep, why the heaviness has followed you even when you tried to start fresh. It's because the war you've been fighting was never only about you, it was about the generations that came before you and the ones that will come after. There are chains in your family line that disguised themselves as normal. Patterns that repeated poverty that felt impossible to escape, rejection that showed up in every relationship, fear that seemed to whisper the same words to every generation. But heaven has been watching, and God has chosen you to be the interruption. You are the one heaven marked to break the cycle. The enemy thought he could hide behind tradition, behind silence, behind the phrase, "That's just how it's always been." But God says, no more. The pain that tried to define your lineage ends with you. You are not cursed, you are called. You are not carrying your family's burden. You are carrying heaven's assignment. And yes, the fight has been brutal. You've cried in rooms where no one knew what you were wrestling. You felt exhaustion that reached beyond your body into your spirit. But in that private pain, God was training you. He was teaching your spirit how to recognize the counterfeit voices that had ruled your bloodline for generations. There's a reason your spirit never settled for good enough. You were never meant to repeat history, you were meant to rewrite it. Every tear has watered the soil for a new beginning. Every no you received was heaven protecting your yes. And the very pain that once tried to bury you is becoming the proof that God is birthing something new through you. Chosen one. This is not just another encouraging word. This is a divine announcement. The cycle is breaking. The curse is collapsing. And the mantle of freedom is falling on your shoulders. You are the evidence that God never forgets a family line. You are the answer to your ancestors' prayers. And in this season, heaven is saying, it ends with you, because it begins again through you. Because heaven saw the cries that went unheard, the prayers whispered in secret, the sleepless nights filled with questions, the silent wondering if you were strong enough to keep standing. God was watching through every generation, tracing the thread of pain that kept trying to weave itself into your destiny. And when the time was right, he said, this ends here. There was a moment unseen but divine when your name was spoken in heaven's courts. God himself appointed you to carry an assignment not of burden, but of redemption. You were not born by accident. You were born as heaven's response to an old wound. Your life is the divine interruption that hell didn't see coming. Every generation before you may have fought in silence, but you will speak. Where others bowed to fear, you will rise in faith. And where the curse tried to echo your voice, will declare a new sound, the sound of freedom. This message is not a coincidence. It's a divine recall, a spiritual awakening, a signal from the throne of God, reminding you that you were chosen to repair what was broken. There are things in your bloodline that cried out for healing, but no one had the courage to face them until now. That's why you've always felt like the outsider, the one who couldn't blend in even when you tried. God set you apart because restoration requires separation. To fix what's been fractured, you had to see it from a higher place. And though it's been painful, every moment has been preparation. The losses that broke your heart were divine redirections. The betrayals that cut so deep were purifications of your circle. The seasons of isolation were not punishments, they were classrooms. You were not being buried, you were being planted. And now heaven says, it's time to grow. God wants you to understand something powerful. The fight wasn't only about your peace, it was about the peace of those who will come after you. You are standing at a crossroads where generations intersect. Behind you stand the cries of the past, before you lies the promise of the future, And heaven has stretched its hand toward you, saying, "Walk forward, because I go with you." This is the part of your journey where divine revelation meets purpose. You're not just healing your own story, you're rewriting your family's legacy. The patterns that once dictated your lineage, fear, scarcity, addiction, rejection, are losing authority even now. Every step you take in obedience becomes a decree that reverberates backward through time and forward into eternity. You are walking in divine timing, where what was lost is being restored and what was broken is being rebuilt. So when you feel that stirring in your spirit, that trembling deep within, that says something is shifting, it's not imagination. It's alignment. It's the evidence that heaven has already begun the work. And what was meant to end in pain will become the birthplace of promise, because God is not just healing a person, He is healing a bloodline. There comes a moment when the unseen becomes undeniable, when what heaven has been preparing beneath the surface begins to rise into sight. And that moment is now. The Spirit of God says, the pain that ran through your lineage has reached its expiration. What once flowed like a river of sorrow is being turned into a fountain of redemption. You have felt the shaking, the strange shifts, the sudden endings. But these were not random disruptions. They were divine signals that the old system could no longer sustain the new season. The cycle was collapsing, and heaven was closing one era to open another through you. For years, the enemy sowed confusion into your family, twisting love into manipulation, turning dreams into disappointments, and transforming blessings into burdens. But what the enemy planted as poison, God is transforming into medicine. He is taking the same soil that grew pain and making it produce purpose. Every generational wound that cried out for justice is now being rewritten by the blood of the Lamb. The altars built on fear are being overturned by altars built on faith. The words that once cursed are being silenced by words that heal. The walls that separated hearts are being torn down by divine love. This is not symbolic. It is literal spiritual restoration in motion. God is untangling the roots beneath your story, the hidden agreements that kept your family bound to pain, regret, and stagnation. You are stepping into a divine exchange where heaviness is lifted, where guilt is dissolved, where patterns lose their power. Heaven has issued a decree. The generational chain is broken, and you will begin to notice it not only in yourself, but in the atmosphere around you. Dreams that once ended in frustration will now lead to fulfillment. Doors that stayed shut for decades will begin to open with ease. Where there was lack, there will be provision. Where there was conflict, there will be peace. And where there was silence, voices will rise again in praise. You are living in the fulfillment of an ancient promise, one that your ancestors hoped for, but could not touch. They carried the burden, but you will carry the breakthrough. They prayed for freedom, but you will walk in it. Because God, in His infinite mercy, has chosen this generation to witness what others only dreamed about. There will be moments when you sense an invisible hand guiding you, prompting you to say no to what your family always said yes to, urging you to walk away from what others embraced, pulling you toward higher ground when comfort calls your name. That's not fear. That's discernment. That's heaven rewiring your instincts to align with divine destiny. Because where God is taking you, the old behaviors cannot follow. You're not repeating, you're replacing. You're not returning, you're rebuilding. You're not cursed, you are commissioned. The Lord says, "This is the season where I am reordering the narrative. What was marked as pain will now be marked as promise. I am turning the curse into a covenant and every broken vow into a testimony of grace. There will be restoration even in places you never thought healing could reach. You will look back and realize that God not only broke the pattern, He reversed it. What once destroyed unity will now create it. What once drained you will now pour into you. What once left you empty will overflow. But understand this restoration does not come quietly. It arrives with shaking. It exposes it, uproots it, separates. Because when God restores, He first reveals. He will show you the roots of pain, not to shame you, but to free you. He will expose the pattern not to condemn, but to cleanse. And He will remind you that His plan was never destruction, it was redemption all along. You are standing in the middle of prophecy fulfilled. You are walking in the sentence heaven wrote long before you were born. I will bless those who come after, because one dared to believe me. You are that one. And the cycle that once threatened your peace will now testify of God's power. This is not the end of your family's story. It's the rebirth. And what begins with you will echo for generations to come. To understand what's happening in your life right now, you must look beyond the visible. Because what appears as conflict, as loss, as unexpected endings, is not chaos, it's divine construction. God is rebuilding something ancient in you. And every shake, every tear, every lonely night has been a hammer striking against old foundations that could no longer hold what heaven is preparing to pour out. For generations, there were unspoken agreements, silent patterns that repeated through bloodlines. Some of them were formed through pain, others through fear, and many through misunderstanding. But divine revelation always begins with exposure. Before God heals, He reveals. Before He delivers, He disrupts. Because the light cannot transform what it refuses to confront. That's why your journey has been so intense, because you are the first in your line to truly see, to look beyond the surface and ask, why? Why does the same pain keep returning under new names? Why do I feel like I'm walking in circles even though I'm trying to do everything right? That questioning was not rebellion, it was revelation being born. It was heaven awakening your spirit to break a rhythm that didn't belong to you. Spiritually, you've been walking through a wilderness not meant to punish you, but to rewire you. The wilderness is where God detoxes the soul. It's where the noise of past generations fades and only His voice remains. He took you away from the familiar so He could teach you the language of freedom, a language your ancestors longed to learn, but never heard clearly. Understand this generational pain operates like roots beneath the ground. You don't see them, but they shape everything above the surface. They determine how high you grow, how long you last, how much fruit you bear. God, in His mercy, has reached deep into your soil. He's been pulling out roots that were choking your potential roots of rejection, fear, shame, self-sabotage, and unworthiness. And yes, it hurt when He started digging, because the roots were tangled around parts of you that had learned to survive by them. But He's not cutting to kill. He's pruning to multiply. Every tear you've shed has watered the ground for something sacred. Every heartbreak was a seed of wisdom planted in faith. And every time you refused to quit heaven, recorded it as an act of warfare. You were not just enduring pain, you were birthing a new pattern. The pain was the proof of progress. The breaking was the evidence of becoming. Think of a seed, it must be buried before it breaks open. The darkness is not death, it's transformation. In the soil unseen, the seed surrenders its form so it can become what it was destined to be. You've been that seed. Buried, pressed, hidden, but never forgotten. And the same hand that buried you in mystery is now calling you into manifestation. Heaven's pattern is always reversal. Where the enemy thought he planted loss, God grows increase. Where the enemy thought he planted silence, God births a sound. Where the enemy thought he planted death, God raises resurrection. And that resurrection is already stirring within you. The deeper meaning of this breaking is not punishment, it's purification. It's the divine refining of your identity, stripping away the residue of old stories so you can carry the new. You were never meant to live small. You were designed to walk in the fullness of divine inheritance. And that inheritance begins when you realize you don't have to carry what your bloodline carried anymore. You can honor their struggle without inheriting their pain. That's what breaking the cycle truly means. It's not rejection of the past, it's redemption of it. It's saying, this is where the story turns. It's forgiving what was broken, blessing what remains, and choosing to walk forward with wisdom. Because your freedom will not erase your history, it will heal it. In heaven's view, every generation is a thread. Some threads are dark, some bright, some twisted with tension. But when God weaves them together, they form a tapestry called destiny. You are that golden thread He has been saving for this hour. Your obedience becomes the needle that mends what was torn. Your surrender becomes the fabric that holds what was fragile. And your faith, your quiet, persistent faith, becomes the pattern that future generations will recognize as holy. So, if you've been wondering why this process has felt heavier than anything you've known, it's because you're carrying more than your own story. You're carrying the restoration of your lineage. You're carrying divine correction wrapped in compassion. And the very places that once symbolized pain will soon radiate power. You are walking out of the shadow of generational bondage and into the light of generational blessing. The chains you felt were not proof of defeat. They were proof that heaven trusted you to be the one to break them. And once the light enters, darkness cannot reclaim what's been transformed. The cycle ends here, not just for you, but for every name connected to yours. When heaven begins to move, the evidence always shows up before the world understands it. You start feeling it before you can explain it. You begin seeing fragments of change before anything around you looks different. That's how divine confirmation works. It whispers before it shouts. And for you, those whispers have already begun. You may have noticed that certain things you once tolerated now feel unbearable. That's the first sign, holy discomfort. It's not frustration, it's separation. It's your spirit rejecting what no longer aligns with where God is taking you. Conversations that once felt natural now feel draining. Habits that once felt harmless now feel heavy. You're not losing interest. You're being refined. God is detoxing your atmosphere so that your destiny can breathe. The second sign is divine disconnection. People who once stood close may suddenly fade. Not because they are evil, but because your frequency changed. Heaven shifted your assignment, and not everyone can walk with you into freedom. You'll feel the loss, but you'll also sense peace that doesn't make sense. That peace is God saying, I'm the one who made the separation. He's pruning your circle so that when you rise, no one can claim they made you. The third sign is the stirring of remembrance. You'll start recalling moments, memories, even childhood patterns you forgot, but now they carry revelation. You'll suddenly understand why certain things hurt so deeply or repeated so consistently. God is not reopening wounds to shame you. He's revealing roots to heal you. He will show you the origin of certain fears or habits, and as you acknowledge them, they lose their authority. That moment of realization is heaven rewriting your internal script. The fourth sign is unexpected peace amid uncertainty. Normally, you would panic when things fell apart, but now there's a strange calm. Doors close, people leave, money shifts, yet your heart stays steady. That peace is not denial, it's divine evidence. It's heaven saying the battle is over. You've stepped out of survival and into surrender, and the atmosphere recognizes it. The fifth sign is confirmation through creation. Nature itself will start echoing the message of your freedom. You'll hear songs that speak your story. You'll notice words, numbers, patterns, subtle alignments that tell you heaven is near. Even the timing of encounters. The random encouragements, the moments of déjà vu, these are not coincidences. They are divine fingerprints on your timeline. Heaven marking moments saying you're on schedule. And the sixth sign, perhaps the most sacred, is tears without pain. There will come a moment when you cry, but it won't be sorrow. It'll be release. You'll feel something lifting from within you, a burden that's been there for years suddenly breaking. That's not emotion, that's deliverance. It's the sound of your spirit exhaling for the first time in generations. When these signs appear, don't rush the process. Let them unfold. Because each one is heaven's way of telling you it's happening. The chain is breaking. The cycle is closing. And soon, you'll notice something even deeper. The atmosphere of your lineage will feel lighter. You'll sense joy where there was always tension, clarity where there was confusion, laughter where there was silence. That's how you know the new pattern has begun. Even as the signs begin to appear, you may notice that the path doesn't suddenly become smooth. In fact, sometimes it feels like everything intensifies, as if the darkness grows louder just when the light begins to break through. That's not because you're failing. It's because freedom always stirs resistance. When a generational chain starts to snap, every spirit that once fed on your family's pain feels the tremor. The opposition you sense is proof that deliverance is near. The first hidden challenge is spiritual fatigue. You'll wake up some days and feel heavy for no clear reason. Old emotions may resurface. Guilt, anger, loneliness, not to pull you backward, but to be released once and for all. It's the soul's way of detoxing centuries of residue. Don't fight the feeling. Pray through it. Let the tears fall. Heaven is not punishing you. Heaven is cleansing you. Each time you push through that heaviness, you're breaking another invisible link that once bound your lineage. The second challenge is the temptation to isolate. When your spirit starts to ascend, you'll crave silence, but the enemy will try to twist that silence into separation. You'll feel misunderstood, unseen, even forgotten. But remember, you are not being abandoned. You are being hidden. God often conceals his chosen vessels before he reveals them. Don't mistake protection for rejection. Stay in prayer. Stay grounded. The isolation is your incubation. The third challenge is false reflection. During transition, the enemy loves to send distorted mirrors situations or people that make you doubt your progress. You may face a familiar test, a person from your past, an opportunity that mirrors an old mistake, a voice that echoes your old identity. But this time discernment will rise from within you. You'll see the trap for what it is, not a repeat, but a review. God is allowing it so you can confirm your growth. When you respond differently, the cycle is officially closed. The fourth challenge is divine silence. You'll reach moments where heaven seems quiet. No fresh word, no clear sign, just stillness. But silence is not absence. It's the sound of heaven trusting you with maturity. You're no longer being spoon-fed revelation. You're walking in it. This is where faith deepens, where obedience becomes reflex instead of reaction. The silence is your spiritual graduation. The fifth challenge is emotional warfare. As freedom nears the mind, becomes a battlefield. Old fears will whisper, "What if nothing changes?" But you must remind yourself things have already changed. The warfare only increases when the enemy knows he's losing ground. So when the pressure rises, smile. You're standing at the threshold of release. Understand this, every challenge you face now is proof that you're carrying something sacred. The enemy doesn't waste attacks on the empty. He attacks the anointed. And if the battle feels intense, It's because heaven has entrusted you with a victory that will echo for generations. So hold steady. Keep your worship louder than your worry. Let faith be your anchor when emotion wavers. Because even in the shaking, you are not losing. You are being strengthened for the promise that's about to unfold. Now that heaven has revealed what's breaking, God begins to give instruction, because revelation without direction can still lead to delay. He's not only freeing you, he's forming you. He's teaching you how to walk in a new rhythm so the old patterns can't return. The chains may be broken, but if you don't move differently, the enemy will try to rebuild what God just destroyed. That's why this next part matters. Heaven is giving you strategy for your freedom. The first instruction is guard your atmosphere. Be intentional about what you allow into your spirit. There are words, songs, conversations, and energies that carry residue from the old cycle. They may seem harmless, but they reopen spiritual wounds. You've been called to live differently now. Protect your peace like it's treasure, because it is. When you feel your peace being stolen, pause. Don't argue. Don't chase. Don't explain. Withdraw into the presence of God. That stillness is where your authority is renewed. The second instruction is speak life daily. Heaven is recalibrating your voice, because what you say shapes your spiritual climate. You can't keep calling yourself broken and expect to walk in wholeness. Start declaring alignment, even when you don't feel it yet. Say, my bloodline is blessed. My hands are anointed. My mind is clear. My home is holy. Heaven responds to language that agrees with destiny. When you speak, your words don't disappear, they build. So from this day forward, build your atmosphere with victory. The third instruction is release resentment. Yes, they hurt you. Yes, they betrayed you. Yes, some of that pain came from family. But bitterness keeps the cycle alive. Forgiveness is not weakness, it's warfare. When you forgive, you strip the enemy of his legal right to your peace. You free your heart from carrying what God already condemned. You cannot step into generational healing while dragging the weight of old offenses. So bless those who wounded you, even if they never apologize. Your forgiveness becomes the weapon that finishes what God started. The fourth instruction is return to prayer, not performance prayer, but heart prayer, the kind that doesn't seek results, but relationship. God wants to walk with you daily, not occasionally. Your intimacy with Him is the firewall that protects the new season. You don't need eloquent words, you just need honesty. Whisper to Him in the kitchen. Speak to Him in your car. Let prayer become the atmosphere of your life, not an appointment on your calendar. Because when you live in prayer, discernment sharpens peace, multiplies, and your path stays lit, even when the world around you darkens. The fifth instruction is break agreement with fear. Fear is the language of the old cycle. It tells you you're not enough, that you'll fail again, that change won't last. But fear is a liar. Every time you act in faith, even in trembling, you rewrite your story. God doesn't need you to be fearless. He needs you to move despite fear. Your courage is what reprograms the spiritual DNA of your bloodline. When you choose faith over fear, you send a message into the future. Our family walks by faith now. The sixth instruction is stay humble in victory. When the breakthrough manifests, and it will, don't forget who brought you out. Pride reopens doors that humility keeps sealed. Remember, you are the vessel, not the source. Honor the God who broke what you couldn't. Give Him glory in private, not just in public. Because gratitude is the language that keeps heaven close. The seventh instruction, and perhaps the most sacred, is build altars of remembrance. Document your deliverance. Write down every answered prayer, every shift, every small miracle. Tell the story to your children. Let your home carry reminders of what God did. Altars are not monuments of pain. They are memorials of promise. Every time you look back and remember, faith reignites. The next generation won't have to wonder if God was real. They'll see your life and know. Heaven is saying, I'm giving you strategy not for a moment, but for a legacy. This is how you make freedom permanent. This is how the broken cycle stays buried. Not by emotion, but by alignment. Not by might, but by obedience. So walk carefully, speak wisely, love freely, and stay near the presence. Because the same God who broke the curse is now building the blessing, and He's building it through you. Now that heaven has given you the blueprint, it's time to rest in the safety of the one who sent it. Because obedience does not exist without protection. When God assigns, He also surrounds. You are not walking this path alone. Even when you can't see them, there are angels stationed around you. Not the delicate kind painted in soft light, but mighty warriors who stand between you and what was meant to destroy you. They have been assigned to your lineage because of the covenant you carry. You are not just protected, you are preserved. Every time you stepped away from something that didn't feel right, that was divine interception. Every almost that never happened was heaven's shield in disguise. There are things that never reached you because God's hand stopped them mid-air. There are battles you never fought because heaven fought them before you woke up. And there are words spoken against you that evaporated in silence because the blood of Jesus refused to let them land. You have been covered far more than you've been attacked. You just didn't see the warfare that never made it to your doorstep. God says you are surrounded even when you feel exposed. I have built a hedge around your spirit, your home, your name. The arrows may fly, but they will fall short. The waves may rise, but they will not drown you. You will feel the wind, but not the wound. Because divine covering is not the absence of storms, it's the promise that the storm will not win. There is a peace coming to you now, not the fragile peace the world gives, but the kind that anchors even in chaos. It will quiet your mind when logic fails. It will steady your breathing when anxiety creeps in. It will whisper, you are safe, even before the circumstance changes. That peace is not a feeling, it's a force. It's the presence of the Almighty resting on you. Heaven wants you to know you are untouchable in your obedience. When you walk in divine alignment, you walk under divine jurisdiction. No curse, no hex, no whisper, no shadow can overrule the word of God spoken over you. You are hidden in plain sight, visible to destiny, invisible to destruction. And this covering doesn't end with you. It extends to those connected to you, your children, your household, even those who stand beside you in faith. Because when God redeems a lineage, He protects the roots and the fruit. Your obedience built a fortress around your family that even the enemy now recognizes. Every night you prayed instead of panicked. Every moment you praised instead of complained. Bricks of protection were being laid around your name. So breathe. You are not one mistake away from losing what God has given you. Grace has you. Mercy walks beside you. Angels go before you. And the Spirit of God dwells within you. The same hand that broke the cycle now guards the promise. And no force in heaven, on earth, or beneath it can undo what has been sealed in divine decree. There comes a moment when the dust settles and the air feels different. You'll look around and realize that the storm that once defined you has gone quiet. It's not that life becomes perfect, it's that you've become unshakable. The weight you once carried no longer feels heavy. The memories that used to sting now feel sacred. And the tears that once fell in despair now fall in gratitude. That's how transformation begins, quietly, internally, deeply. You won't even notice it at first. You'll just wake up one day and realize that the things that used to break you no longer have power. You'll handle disappointment with wisdom, not anger. You'll walk through waiting seasons with calm, not fear. And you'll feel peace in places that once brought panic. That's not coincidence, that's fruit. That's heaven proving that what God promised has been completed in you. Transformation is not just external change, it's internal resurrection. God didn't just remove your pain, He repurposed it. The ashes became oil. The wounds became wisdom. The scars became stories that heal others. And what once looked like loss now shines as legacy. You'll begin to see restoration ripple outward. Opportunities will come not as rewards, but as reflections of alignment. People will enter your life who feel like answered prayers because they are. Doors will open, but you'll walk through them differently now, not out of desperation, but discernment. You'll sense when something carries peace, and when it doesn't, because your spirit is finely tuned to heaven's frequency. And you'll notice something holy. The very places that once symbolized generational struggle will now overflow with generational blessing. If your family wrestled with lack, abundance will flow through your hands. If they battled division, reconciliation will follow your voice. If they endured rejection, favor will rest upon you like sunlight. Because the curse didn't just break, it reversed. The ground that once produced thorns will now bloom. The walls that once divided will now host laughter. The home that once carried silence will now echo with worship. You will find yourself walking lighter, not because everything is easy, but because everything is redeemed. Even your memories have been rewritten. You'll revisit moments that once brought tears, and this time, you'll smile. Because now you can see what God was doing behind the scenes, how every delay was divine choreography, how every detour was holy redirection. This is fulfillment, not the flashy kind, but the eternal kind. It's the quiet knowing that you made it through what was meant to destroy you. It's the steady heartbeat that says, I am healed, I am whole, I am His. And it's the peace of knowing that future generations, Atsurians, will never have to fight what you fought. God is now turning the page of your story. The chapter of pain has closed. The chapter of purpose begins. And everything connected to your name, every dream, every promise, every person tied to your assignment will begin to rise with you. Because transformation doesn't stop with one, it multiplies. You became the seed of restoration, and now heaven is watering your legacy. Your life will become the sermon your family never heard. Your peace will preach louder than your pain ever did. Your stability will teach your children what security feels like. And your joy will become the sound that heals those still learning how to smile again. This is fulfillment, not temporary blessing, but generational abundance. It's heaven's way of saying, well done. You stood when others fell. You believed when others doubted. You became the proof that the cycle can break and still end in beauty. You are no longer the echo of old wounds. You are the voice of restoration. And what God has begun in you, He will continue through every name connected to yours. Now breathe, not as the one who survived the storm, but as the one who now carries authority over it. The generational pain that once spoke loudly in your bloodline has fallen silent. What remains is peace, ancient, holy, unshakable peace. You are no longer standing in the ruins of what was. You are standing on the foundation of what will be. The same soil that once carried your tears will now grow your testimony. The cycle is over. The curse is broken. The new story has begun. Heaven wants these words written on your heart, not just for this moment, but for every moment that tries to make you forget. Affirmation 1. I am the divine turning point in my family line. Say it aloud until your soul believes it. You are not an accident. You are heaven's response to history. You were raised to heal what others endured. And because you said yes to growth, your lineage will never go back to chains. Affirmation 2. Everything that tried to break me has built me instead. The pain didn't destroy you. It designed you. Every season of loss became a blueprint for strength. You are not wounded, you are wise. Not fragile, but fortified. And every scar on your soul now glows as proof that God finishes what He starts. Affirmation 3. I walk under divine protection and overflow in divine provision. From this moment on, lack will not define you, fear will not guide you, and darkness will not touch what heaven has sealed. You move under open skies, now protected, provided for, and preserved. What's ahead of you will be greater than what's behind you, because your steps are aligned with purpose. Affirmation 4. The story of my family is rewritten in grace. Every name, every generation, every branch connected to you will feel the ripples of your obedience. You are the bridge between what was broken and what will be blessed. Your yes has become the seed of restoration for countless souls. Now, as this word settles in your spirit, let heaven seal it in faith. May peace rest on you like morning light. May your home become a sanctuary where divine presence lingers. May your dreams awaken with clarity and your hands never run empty. May your name be spoken with honor in rooms you haven't entered yet. And may every hidden wound become a place where miracles are born. You are not who you were, you are who heaven always said you'd become. The pain was generational, but the promise is eternal. God has broken the cycle and rewritten the legacy. Walk forward now, free chosen, covered and called. This is your new beginning.